Namaskar and welcome to India Ahead. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Operation Sindoor made history not just through precise military action against Pakistani terrorists. It showcased India's new framework to tackle all terror-related challenges in the future. Call it the Modi Doctrine. It marks a new era of clarity, courage and strategy to take on the menace of terrorism. In the next half an hour or so, we'll deliberate on what this means for India. Shall we begin? Earlier this week, in his address to the nation, Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaffirmed India's commitment to combating terrorism, declaring that Operation Sindoor now defines the nation's anti-terror stance. Hailing decisive retaliation, Prime Minister asserted that terrorism and diplomacy cannot coexist.
Terror और टॉक एक साथ नहीं हो सकते. टेरर और ट्रेड एक साथ नहीं चल सकते और पानी और खून भी एक साथ नहीं बह सकता.
Later, speaking at Adampur Air Base in Punjab, Prime Minister Modi presented the key pillars of India's new framework against terrorism.
भारत पर आतंकी हमला हुआ हम अपने तरीके से अपनी शर्तों पर अपने समय पर जवाब देंगे. दूसरा, कोई भी न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल भारत नहीं सहेगा. तीसरा, हम आतंक की सरपरस्त सरकार और आतंक के आकाओं को अलग अलग नहीं देखेंगे. दुनिया भी भारत के इस नए रूप को, इस नई व्यवस्था को समझते हुए ही आगे बढ़ रही है.
Prime Minister lauded India's brave soldiers and air warriors' courage and professionalism in protecting the nation. He also noted that Operation Sindoor is India's new normal.
आतंक के विरुद्ध भारत की लक्ष्मण रेखा अब एकदम स्पष्ट है. अब फिर कोई टेरर अटैक हुआ तो भारत जवाब देगा, पक्का जवाब देगा. ये हमने सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक के समय देखा है, एयर स्ट्राइक के समय देखा है और अब तो ऑपरेशन सिंदूर भारत का न्यू नॉर्मल है.
India's Information and Broadcasting Minister Ashwani Vaishnav has penned an opinion piece on Operation Sindoor, detailing Prime Minister Modi's zero-tolerance doctrine against terrorism. The minister explains the decisive retaliation, nuclear blackmail rejection and accountability for terrorist sponsors, among others. He highlights that Pahalgam attack was an assault on the country's principles. The minister underlined that the doctrine shaped by recent events established the decisive framework for India's response to terrorism and external threats. INB Minister also reiterated that every move under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, from putting the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance to launching military strikes on terror camps, was carefully planned and timed. He also wrote that from surgical strikes in 2016 to Balakot in 2019 and the most recent Operation Sindoor, India has framed a clear doctrine. Addressing the cabinet on Wednesday, Minister Ashwani Vaishnav underscored the significance of Operation Sindoor, calling it a crucial example of India's identity.
ऑपरेशन सिंदूर एक बहुत ही भारत की एक अस्मिता भारत के हमारे आर्म्ड फोर्सेस का जो रोल रहा है और जो एक डिसाइसिव लीडरशिप रही है और एक जो नई डॉक्ट्रिन बनी है उसका एक बहुत बड़ा एग्जाम्पल है। उसके ऊपर कई प्रेस ब्रीफिंग्स यहाँ पे हो चुकी है, मैं उसके डिटेल्स में नहीं जाऊँगा, लेकिन वाकई ये देश के लिए एक सराहनीय चीज़।
Meanwhile, India's Operation Sindoor has been hailed as a decisive military victory by international defense experts as well. Talking about operation on various media platforms, renowned international analysts including Tom Cooper, John Spencer and member of International Press Association Jennifer Zheng have provided detailed assessments of India's performance during the conflict, terming them as India's victory. Austrian military historian Tom Cooper characterized India's air campaign as a clear-cut victory. Meanwhile, John Spencer lauded India's approach and highlighted that Operation Sindoor redefined India's red lines, treating terror attacks from Pakistani territory as an act of war. And to take forward this conversation and deliberation on the new framework against terrorism, joining me are two eminent guests. Let me welcome Ambassador Anil Vadva, former senior diplomat, and retired Major General Ashim Kohli, defense expert. Good evening and welcome, gentlemen. General Kohli, if I can come to you first. While much of the public attention has centered around the military action in the last few days, the fact that it happened not on impulse but as part of a carefully crafted long-term strategy is what makes Operation Sindoor historic. Your thoughts, sir?
The thing is right. The dynamics of India and Pakistan along the border, from the military point of view, had been taking its shape for long. We had to craft a policy from the military point of view, which can make the current policy of Pakistan as a terrorist nation and trying our tolerance had to be given a befitting reply in terms of military action. So that's what has been done. I will like to say that our objective of Operation Sindoor has been achieved, but our military objective and nation objective, finding the solution which will remain long-term effective against this state-sponsored terrorism by Pakistan, has to be dealt continuously. We have to evolve as a nation and as military in that manner, which will keep changing because the dynamics now will change from all angles within Pakistan, within terrorist organization, within military, within the allies of the Pakistan. So it has to be a continuous process. And so far, so good in Op Sindoor. As our Prime Minister also said, it's not over. It's a temporary halt. So my view is that let's remain on our guard with the kind of neighborhood that we have got in current situation, Pakistan, otherwise China as well.
Right. Ambassador Vadva, if I can come to you, India has drawn a new red line and also enforced it. Your thoughts on this new framework, doctrine that we're talking about against terror as a possible game changer?
So between May 7 and 10, we saw that India has demonstrated not only military precision and also a technological edge, but also dominance of the escalation dynamics, which has been coupled with a very smart instinct to de-escalate once the objectives were met. We saw that India therefore completed what it set out to do, target the terrorists, enforce accountability, and also reassert deterrence without slipping into a full-scale war. So I would say that the operation was the latest chapter in an evolving doctrine, as you also mentioned, which India has been actually shaping since 2016, when it first abandoned strategic restraint with cross-border surgical ground strike, responding to terrorism in Uri. And then also Operation Sindoor is the next rung of Operation Bandar, the airstrikes in Balakot in 2019, that actually had become the shorthand for a very bold and more kinetic approach to deterrence. So each iteration has added layers of credibility and precision to our posture across cross-border terrorism, adding both punitive and preemptive elements to now reinforce credible deterrence. This posture, therefore, in my view, has shifted from what I would call strategic ambiguity to one of conditional clarity. Cross-border terror will invite cross-border consequences. So I think in its execution, the operation was not at all reckless. It reflected a very strategic maturity. Inflict pain, send a message, and leave an exit ramp open. And India has demonstrated its capability with
Right.
restraint. The combination of threat and managed risk is a very significant departure from the ambiguous policies that we used to have in the past.
Right. General Kohli, if we talk about each of the pillars of this new doctrine, as Prime Minister puts it, number one would be a decisive retaliation on India's terms. Now, how does it mark a break from the policy that the nation had hitherto followed on it? How does it also represent a sort of new confidence and resolve to tackle the challenge head on?
See, as a country, we have reached a new kind of war fighting of a different dimension, low scale, but decisive, or impunity. Now, till now, never ever we had gone deep into the Pakistan. Till 2003, the LC firing was very common thing. But now, once we have shown our capability and resolve that we can go deep into any part of the country to hit our objectives, it is opening a different kind of dimensions in the relation between the military and strategic relation between India and Pakistan, or the conflict between the two countries on these accounts, and also a different thought process that has to come in the mind of India, and war is action and reaction, and how does Pakistan look at the whole issue and change. Pakistan is not going to change at all by Op Sindoor. I don't believe it, because the very existence of Pakistan is based on anti-India policy. So the new ways of spreading terrorism or unrest, or the breaking of the peace in Kashmir or other areas will continue. He'll evolve new tools. We'll have to evolve those tools. So this process will be a continuing thing. But yes, it has exposed to us and to Pakistan that what can happen without going for a full-scale conventional war, but achieving our strategic objective at different point of time, particularly related to terrorism issue and the objective in that.
Right. General Kohli, let me also bring to you the second pillar of this doctrine, zero tolerance against nuclear blackmail. That was very common a stance that Pakistan would take. But it is a bit more complex than it seems. Pakistan is a nuclear state, but how do you militarily call off the bluff?
Yeah. A nuclear bluff or nuclear blackmail is a condition which Pakistan also will not use at the drop of the hat. Any country will use nuclear when it is expected in complete annihilation stage. And calling for small actions like I'll say Operation Sindoor was not a full-scale war, again I'm saying. So against that kind of action, Pakistan can never think of a nuclear war or going for a nuclear option. Similarly, the whole world is watching us. We are in the era when everything is moved from any silos or any kind of installation where the nuclear things are kept, storage is there with a missile or other kind of launch pads. It is always on the radar of the international community. The nuclear cannot be used at all, as well as I believe, and we have shown it adequately now. We have hit the strategic target and called a clear bluff. Rather, there are certain reports of their own worries with respect to their nuclear assets in their own country. So definitely, this bluff has been, as our Prime Minister also said, has been clearly shown to the entire world. And nuclear card he was playing for many decades. At least I'm very sure it will stop. And our new strategy is again an answer to his nuclear bluff, because that is a weapon of last resort in any war, in a full-scale war where the other countries in the state of total decimation.
Right. That brings me to the third pillar of this doctrine. Ambassador Wadhwa, if I can come to you, sir. It says no distinction between the terrorist and their sponsors. In other words, it's also put that any new act of cross-border terrorism will be seen as an act of war. How does this new red line, if I may call it, define the relationship between India and Pakistan from here on?
So for a long time now, and for many years, it's quite clear that there is a clear linkage between the terrorists who operate on the ground and the people who handle them, as well as the Pakistani army and military and the ISI. So as that realization has sunk in India a long time ago, and now, of course, across the world, that they are one and the same people because they're using this as a leverage. If they cannot win in the battlefield in conventional war, then they would use terrorism as an instrument of state policy. So how does one overcome that? And India, as I said, has been evolving its doctrine since 2016, and now it's made the pivot. And I'm glad that the Prime Minister has made the pivot quite clear, where he said that, our fight is against terrorism. We don't need war, and neither do we need passive restraint anymore. So this is actually a very credible and a coercive step against terrorism. And if you do not distinguish between those who sponsor terrorism and the terrorists on the ground, then you have a very clear mind about how to respond, where to respond, and when to respond. And this is what the Operation Sindoor has revealed and has led to. And I'm glad that the Prime Minister has laid this out very clearly so that everybody is clear, not only in India, but also in Pakistan and across the world, that this is how India is going to act in the future, decisively and coercively.
Right. Also, Ambassador Wadhwa, the kind of information warfare that we saw was being unleashed by the adversary in the days of the conflict in the last few days. How does the new framework also account for that hybrid nature of warfare, of conflict that India and Pakistan engage in?
Yes, of course. I think the nature of warfare, as we all know, has evolved quite a bit. It's no longer the conventional warfare that we used to know in earlier days. In fact, over the past few years, I would say there's been a sea change, and the evolution has been very, very rapid. We will see more of this happening as we go into the future. We already saw that the instruments and equipments that were used and the kind of warfare that was indulged in was of a different character altogether. The reliance on drones, for example, was one of those. And then, of course, the defensive systems, their linkage with satellites and also real-time data, which is required for the modern-day aircraft and also the missiles. These are all evolutionary issues. But in tandem with that, we have a big emphasis on the narrative. And that has also evolved. In case of Pakistan, this was always a case. But I think they've gone many notches higher this time by putting out fake videos and at the same time spreading false and malicious propaganda for the outside world. But I think as time evolves, people begin to see through that because the real-time images are now available. And a number of photographs, the aerial photographs, the satellite photographs across the world, which the credible media is now analyzing, has revealed that Pakistan was actually on the path of misleading not only itself but also the world.
Right. General Kohli, if we go back to the days of the conflict, it was very crucial, while we're talking about the framework against terrorism today, it was very crucial that India's defense preparedness, its execution of the mission resonated with this larger framework. Because having an idea is one thing and to execute it on the ground against the adversary is quite another, whether we talk about the precision strike or defending against the barrage of projectiles that came.
Yeah, what you're saying is right. Actually, if you see in last few years, the development, the various wars that have taken place, whether it is Russia, Ukraine, or any other thing, that there is more dependence on the use of technology and not the physical contact better. And when you're using a warfare in where the precision strike is required, you are based on various networks where you have to coordinate well. You have to have very strong system of the software connection of various weapon between two services with the weapon and the ground. Everything, the next war anywhere, even if it is full scale, you see the Russia-Ukraine war. Initial, there may be contact, but ultimately they home down to whether it is missile attack, whether it is drone attack. So this evolution which has taken place within India also, good thing that we have evolved in the recent few years, both in terms of drones, missiles, and the integration of three services efforts as defense forces under CDS. That is also a positive change. And I'm sure on all other aspects of technology, whether it is Make in India, that we have demonstrated well. And vis-a-vis dependence on the foreign supplied weapon system, whether it is ammunition or weapon system, which has been tested in this by both the side, and it has exposed that what are the vulnerabilities that you can have if you are totally dependent on the export and not on own capability. So the paradigm has totally shifted from the contact battle to high-tech warfare and non-contact battle and use of the technology in the war.
Okay, Ambassador Wadhwa, if we take the conversation forward, do non-military strategies also play an equally important role in this new doctrine against terror? Prime Minister says terror and talks cannot go together, terror and trade cannot go together, blood and water cannot flow together.
Yes, I think those elements have added to the overall policy that India has now adopted towards Pakistan. No, for example, you mentioned about water and the fact that the Indus Water Treaty, India has tried for a very long time now to convince Pakistan and the World Bank, for instance, to relook at this treaty because circumstances have changed. Not only the circumstances have changed, but also the relationship between India and Pakistan has undergone a sea change. And when the treaty was signed at that point in time, it was signed on the basis of good neighborly relationships. Then we have the issue of climate change. And India has now made clear that when you have a situation of terror being unleashed on a neighboring country, you cannot expect that you can have a normality in terms of a treaty which was signed many, many years ago on the premise that there would be good neighborly relations between India and Pakistan, which no longer exists. So that's one clear issue that the Prime Minister has outlined. And the other issue that he's outlined, of course, is the fact that we will no longer live under the shadow of a nuclear threat, which Pakistan has been wielding for a very long time, schooling the international community for a very, very long time on that basis, saying that wars between India and Pakistan can escalate to a nuclear level, and therefore justifying its actions, which actually are not conventional. They are non-conventional, using the terrorist means. And so India has called Pakistan's bluff here and made it very clear as to why this has happened. It's made clear to its own population and also to the outside world that this is the reason why India has adopted this policy.
Right. And gentlemen, I'll take your final comments now. Major General Ashim Kohli, if I can come to you, Minister of Information and Broadcasting Ashwani Vaishnav, in his opinion piece, talks about Operation Sindoor bringing in a new era of clarity and courage. But realistically looking at it, what challenges should India be prepared for?
The first and very foremost is what I was saying, that Pakistan will continue with its policy to cause they don't want peace in Kashmir or the border areas. They'll continue with that. So you have to find what new method it will utilize. We have to prepare for that. Number two, I don't believe Pakistan in maintaining any ceasefire terms for very long. So you have to be now prepared for the kind of strike that we have done in a different methodology, in a different manner. We would have learned many lessons by all three services. We would have seen our total evaluation of the complete weapon system. We have to work on that. And I would like to say that this was just a trailer.
Okay.
If the things would have escalated, probably things would have exposed more. Everything would have got exposed more in terms of our preparedness. And I'm sure we were prepared for that. That's why we went for that. And we should not look at only one border
Okay.
of our country. So we have to be fully prepared, and defense preparedness has to evolve very fast and keep in touch with the current technology.
Okay. Ambassador Wadhwa, what message has India sent out to the world with this framework against terror, and can it serve as a template for others?
Well, three very short points. Number one, that since India has linked terrorism to from Pakistan to an act of war, so therefore it should be prepared to act, and therefore it has to strengthen its capability. These capabilities keep changing as we evolve, and Pakistan will no longer believe that with the situation where it is at the moment is enough for it to carry on in that vein. So therefore, in order to perpetuate its terrorist actions, it will definitely regroup and try and do better next time, and we have to be prepared for it. Third, India has to take this issue forcefully to the United Nations and to the outside world. Make sure that we keep talking to the outside world about what Pakistan has been indulging in, and also make sure that we have enough brains who can put pressure on Pakistan to mend its ways.
On that note, many thanks, Ambassador Anil Wadhwa, General Ashim Kohli, for joining us in this special program and sharing your perspective. And with that, we conclude this edition of India Ahead. News and updates continue on DD India after a short break. Namaskar.